Indefinite leave to remain is wrecking the UK. From the Daily Telegraph online on the 25th of February and in the hard copy on the 26th. And she's talking here about the British disease, which she says is naivety. In 2025, the British disease is naivety. Few policies are more symptomatic of this malady than UK policy on indefinite leave to remain. In an object lesson in his claim to be the most thoughtless man in Britain, Boris Johnson liberalised the rules on migration, opening up the country as never before. As a result, annual net migration rose to a high of above 900,000. As we always say, that's the wrong calculation. It's gross migration we should be looking at, and gross migration is about 1.2 to 1.3 million. And here she says what I've just mentioned. Under our current immigration rules, almost all migrants on work and family visas will qualify for ILR status in just 5 years, meaning they and their dependents will also become eligible for a range of additional benefits, social housing, healthcare, state pension, etc. This is the bit I could not believe, and I spent about an hour and a half today checking it. Their children automatically become citizens too if they are born in Britain. Few countries can boast such a clear absence of any social contract to qualify for entitlements. I like that. Few countries can boast such a clear absence of any social contract to qualify for entitlements. The idea of the social contract is that you do things in exchange for the state giving you things, like you get up at 7 o'clock in the morning and you go to work in the belief that at the end of the week, you'll have enough to pay your rent and your council tax and to look after your family and maybe even have enough for a wee holiday once a year. But when that social contract breaks down, when that's no longer possible, then everything falls apart. And immigration, mass immigration, is destroying the social contract because we are basically not caring that the people coming in should qualify in certain ways. We just give them anything. There's no social contract there. And she points out that if left unchecked, it will be a ticking time bomb on the public finances, because there's going to be, in the next few years, all the people who came in on the Boris wave, all the millions of them, are all going to start qualifying for indefinite leave to remain, which means they're all going to start qualifying for these massive levels of benefits, which is likely to cost the state around 234 billion at a conservative estimate, at a very conservative estimate. And the country can't do any of that whatsoever. And she goes on here and points out in another pithy sentence, as few as 5 years of poorly paid work in exchange for a lifetime of costs to us, the taxpayer, is quite simply a terrible deal for us. And she says we must tighten our policy on indefinite leave to remain. And what she suggests here is maybe extending the eligibility period from 5 years to anything upwards of that. And yes, that should certainly be done. Although we at A Force for Good advocate that the concept is abolished entirely and that immigrants do not get any of those additional benefits until such time as they become citizens. And what we advocate is that citizenship is made much harder. Instead of being able to get citizenship after 6 years, you should only get it after 25 years. And we've written a big article on our website about that. So she's looking at the government and she's trying to convince Keir Starmer, and she's pointing out that from a left-wing perspective, The cost implications of unreformed ILR will fall on the poorest through increased competition for social housing, NHS waiting lists, even universal credit. Government might be forced to cut welfare across the board to meet these associated costs. The obvious panic in the PM's voice as he accused Reform UK of blah blah suggests he is at least beginning to grasp the threat. Indeed. So that is the real danger. It's the ILR, the indefinite leave to remain, which is really what's bringing in all the legals. Now, as for these people coming across the channel, if they get refugee status, then unlike the people who came in legally, as soon as somebody gets refugee status, they get access to everything. They don't have to wait 5 years. They get access to everything. That's a scandal for another day to talk about. But goodness me, we're writing this book at the moment, volume 2 of One Big Country, and we're looking into this and we're really asking, how on earth did any of this come about? And it only came about, in my view, because there was a class of lawyers and internationalists in the British state who said, let's just do this. We've got the power and the stupid people will never find out. And they just worked their will, and not a single British politician either knew what was going on or had the cajones to disagree. And all of this has just been going on since at least 1948. And Edward Heath's 1971 immigration bill brought in indefinite leave to remain. So he's and his lot are to blame for that. But cast your mind back to 1971. Nobody knew what was going on in 1971. Britain was a completely different country.